knows how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with? That's me.
I am not an African American.
You're Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I will slap you.
Go ahead, make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Welcome to the third hour of the show. It is Manhood Hour. Manhood Hour. That's right, Manhood Hour. I have with me Suzanne Venker, a teacher turned author and social critic. Suzanne is a wife and mother of two school-age children. She has written extensively about politics, parenting, and the influence of feminism on American society. She recently penned an article for Fox News that spurred outrage from the left. They had a hissy fit, in other words. The war on men. I mean, we talked about this last week. We had a guest on about it, a liberal man. I don't know if you remember that. He was so mad. But the war on men, and she has Suzanne has an upcoming book, How to Choose a Husband and Make Peace with Marriage. Don't you just love the title alone? Suzanne, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
I absolutely appreciate you being here. I have to tell you right off the bat, before we get into your book, thank you for that article about the war on men. I thought you explained it very well, and that how, some women are being taught to be so-called independent of men and all that, but yet some of them want a husband, but the men are not interested now because women are not women anymore.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that is, I think, difficult to hear, but needs to be said.
Yes.
The last 40 years have been a huge social experiment in terms of male-female relations and families. And we need to, in my opinion, start looking at the other side of the equation. And I think for the last 40 years, we've been pointing the finger directly at men or male institutions or anything that supposedly is keeping women from being so-called equal. So my argument is basically that, we had that all wrong, that feminists are barking up the wrong tree, if you will, and that equality was there and is there. And it's a matter of how you define equality. If you're defining it in terms of value and worth, I don't think that has been ever in question about women's value to society. It was it was different from men's, and that's all there was to it. And they came along to make equality about something else entirely, and that is as though we are the same, men and women, and that there are no differences between the sexes, that there's a patriarchy we need to keep up. The only way we're going to prove our equality is if we have 50% of women in the workforce and 50% of men at-home parents are male. I mean, they're basically never going to be happy until that's what they get. And that is a faux version of equality. That's not real equality. So that's kind of where I come in.
And where is this type of thinking coming from? What made these women feel this way or think that way, that they have gone full force in changing the order?
Well, that's a great question, and I really encourage people to. My last book was called The Flip Side of Feminism, and in there I lay out exactly how this whole business got started in the 1960s and 70s. And if you do a study of the real leaders of the feminist movement, I promise you, will have a light bulb moment, because it's all you need to do is study their backgrounds. They are very, very, very similar. Most of them came from very dysfunctional home lives. Their fathers either left them or their mothers were miserably married, and they had very unhealthy upbringings, which, certainly
Yeah.
we can all relate to some extent. I mean, we get it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But instead of dealing with it personally and getting help, they decided to displace their pain onto society and say, wait a minute, if society had functioned the way it was supposed to function, where women and men were quote-unquote equal, then I wouldn't have had that upbringing that I had, because it was my mother that was miserable being a wife and mother. And so therefore it must be the setup that we've created rather than the human being that I had as a mom.
Oh, that's powerful. You're absolutely right.
And so Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan, you don't take my word for it. Go study it, and you will see there is a common thread there. And those women got on their soapbox and found other women who could relate. And obviously, there are plenty of people who can relate and come from certain environments that were not happy. And if they related to that same scenario of the downtrodden housewife, they're going to jump on board to anything that smacks of victimhood. So then it just snowballed from there.
You know, I can hardly add to this except that right on. You're absolutely right about what you're saying. My concern is that it has so infiltrated our society today as far as in the homes, these ideas in the homes, in the public education, universities and colleges around the country are now teaching, all this crap to the young generation. Are we going to ever be able to turn this around?
Well, it's funny. You're certainly not the first person to say that to me, and I kind of laugh and say, yeah, I've kind of bitten off a little more than I can chew, and I keep biting.
Yeah.
It's going to take me my whole life to try to get people to think about this differently, which is really all I'm trying to do.
Yes.
You're right. It is absolutely in every social arena. It is. It's bad. What's concerning to me is that the people who are the most outspoken among us are the ones that we see and hear from the most. And I just got to the point where I couldn't sit back and let that go on, because there's got to be an alternative voice that tells the truth to these women who are standing up and telling women that their lives suck, basically, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crap. It's not true. And the only way to get what women really ultimately want in their lives is to go forward with some sort of positive attitude about your role in life and how are you going to really get what you want. And that's, again, where I come in, is that my work is about, here's the reality of what most women want. It's not going to apply to every person, but for most people it will. And so I'm concerned, we're so concerned about the minority groups in the country, not just color of skin, but like anybody who doesn't fit the mold. We concentrate so much on that we've forgotten the masses.
Yes.
We need to have role models for the masses, too.
That's right. I absolutely agree. As you're speaking, I'm thinking about some of my experiences I've had over the years. I spoke at, as I do many times, I spoke at a juvenile detention center down in Prattville, Alabama. I would never forget it. And it was to young boys, 15, 16, 17, 18, about 50 of them in this particular room. And only 2 had a father in the home. The rest did not. Mm-hmm. But because they watched movies and TV shows and their mothers had told them how bad their fathers were, they hate their own identity. They hate their fathers. They think that women are, just are men, and they identify more with the woman than they do with their fathers and their own identity. And they say that they see this stuff on the movie, and the man is always looking like the fool, while the woman is looking like the common sense type of a person. And so now they are identifying with that. When I come back, I want to ask, can we change that? And then I want to get into your book, 888-7753-773. Back in a moment. It's my honor to sit here this morning and have this discussion with Suzanne Venker, how to choose a husband and make peace with marriage. You have to get her upcoming book. It is more than a notion, folks. And I do appreciate it. 888-77-JESSE. Suzanne, real fast here, young, and you write about this too in The War on Men, young men don't want to get married. Not all, of course, but you talk to a truckload of them,
Yeah.
and they say they don't want to get married. Some young men have lost that identity of even being a man, but these guys that you talk to appears not to want to get married because women have changed. They're not women anymore. Do we need to take control of movies and TV shows and things like that in order to help change that mindset of how men see them? Some men see themselves as a result of this attack.
Yeah, there's no question that Hollywood plays a huge role in this, or just the media in general, which I talk extensively about in my book.
Yes.
You know, the average, the sitcom of, well, let's put it this way. We know Ward Cleaver is long gone, right?
Right.
But so is Cliff Huxtable, who was in the 1980s, who was enlightened, right, who changed diapers and was involved, but he was also successful, right? So now, fast forward another 20 years, and we have the deadbeat dad, who's basically highlighted in the media as though, or in sitcoms, as though he's a bumbling idiot, he's unemployed, he's clueless, he has no control, he's completely emasculated, and his wife rules the roost. Now, that kind of steady, drip message over too long of a period of time is absolutely going to have an effect. I don't understand people who think that the media doesn't, you just turn off the TV. It just doesn't work that way. What we sell as a message matters. And most of the stuff that we sell generally tends to mirror what's actually happening in society at that time. So the problem is that they're making they're degrading men step by step and making a joke out of it, and it's not funny. They're going to get to a point, men, where they just say enough. They'll laugh, ha 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 ha. It's funny for a little while, and then it's not so funny anymore. And that's basically where I came in with my article on the War on Men, is saying, look, I'm talking to these people. I'm telling you, they don't even want to get married. These are perfectly successful, happy people who are saying, no, thanks, there's nothing in it for me, because everything has been so turned around in terms of gender roles, family life, and quite frankly, even our laws in terms of being more pro-woman and anti-male, that that men are fearful of getting married. It's like there's nothing in it for them. I just spoke with someone I know personally here the other day who's built a little nest egg for himself. He's in his late 40s, never married. And he's like, shoot, the minute I get married, I can potentially kiss half of that away if she decides to leave me. So why would I do that to myself? Especially when men can have sex as much as they want or live with somebody and avoid all those other responsibilities. So that was my point of the War on Men, is that women have created this scenario, and they can uncreate it.
Very, very well said, and I appreciate that. I have to tell you, there are so many things I appreciate about your book, How to Choose a Husband and Make Peace with Marriage. Many things I just absolutely appreciate about, but the one thing that I thought was so just outstanding is how honest you were about yourself in your book. And and I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to that. You talk about how you got married, or you married your first husband or boyfriend, from college. You guys went to school together. Am I right about that?
Yep.
And then at the age of 27, you divorced with no children. Tell us about that.
Well, I thought that was an important component to add in the book, obviously, because it's it's related to why I have a book called How to Choose a Husband.
Yeah, I did too.
I know a little something about how to choose the wrong one, so I thought that was very instructive, and I wanted to put it to good use. It was an experience that haunted me for a very long time, and was an extremely painful period in my life. And I think there are lessons to be learned there. And I think that when people, especially women, are looking out in the media or online for other people's stories, if you will, other women's stories, you get a lot of bitterness there, and a lot of anti-male. He didn't do this for me, he didn't do that for me, so I had to leave him kind of message.
Right.
That's what I read in my research over 3 books. Is just I didn't see anything where women were looking in the mirror themselves, and so that's what I have done in my personal life. So I thought I think it's important to let other women know that this is a critical piece of understanding how marriage works and how to choose the right guy. And so I try to be honest in there about where I failed, and hopefully have done better now.
No. Well, you're very honest, and I thought, I'm like, wow, this is great. But you're happily married now.
Yeah.
You remarried. You're happily married for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I think, and you have 2 children. But I think what is making the marriage work now for you is that you did look at yourself. I notice in my life, when I look at myself to see where I'm wrong, I get better, and that makes everything else in my life better as well.
So my husband and I talk about this a lot, and this is really a key point that he always wants me to get across, is exactly what you just said, is that you have to be able to look inward and say, what did I do wrong, or what can I do differently, or how can I do better to make my life work for me? And I don't think you see that in any of the regular female literature out there. I mean, I've combed through it all, and I see very little self-reflection. I see a lot of blame. And that, when other women look to that and get that kind of a approach, they're going to inevitably do that themselves. That's not helpful. There are 2 sides to this, and that's what I'm trying to do in How to Choose a Husband, is say, what are the messages that you're getting that you need to essentially ignore so that you can follow your heart and make the right choices for yourself? Because that's why I do what I do. It's just I don't want people to have regrets, and I've read about those women who have had them. And it's all about having a really negative attitude about men and marriage, and the messages that they've absorbed have really hurt them.
If anyone missed the point after reading this book, it's just not meant for them to see it. I can't imagine anyone reading it and not being enlightened by it. I thought it was really excellent, too, the way you talk about how you loved your first husband passionately, but that was not enough, because you guys had a completely different value system, and I don't think people really look at that in a marriage.
I don't, especially today, because, this isn't marriage of 50, even 100 years ago, where people were looking at marriage in a more practical way. They're looking at it specifically in terms of love and romance and feelings. And when you get that close, as I certainly did, we were together 5 years before we married. Yeah. Love is never a question. Obviously you loved me, you wouldn't be with them. But there's more to the equation for marriage, not for a relationship per se, but for marriage there is more that you need in your life besides love. So that whole message, love is not enough, is something that I feel in my gut, that I've experienced. I've got the pain to prove it. I'm telling you, it's not going to fly.
Let me take a quick break, and when I come back for our final segment, I want you to tell the people how to get this book. 888-7753-773. Wow. Welcome back. My Twitter handle is at JLP Talk. At JLP Talk. I do appreciate that, folks. I am talking to a brave soul, a person who looks at themselves and get it right, as it will happen for all of us. When you see yourself, then the world is easy to deal with. And Suzanne Venker is with me, V-E-N, Venker is with me. How to Choose a Husband and Make Peace with Marriage. Suzanne, before we run out of time here, tell the people how to get your book.
Okay, so there's actually a website devoted just to the book, and that's howtochooseahusband.com. And you will find all kinds of stuff there. If you click on the book, there's a link there to Amazon. Excuse me, and there's videos and all kinds of stuff. You'd be there for a while.
One thing I love about your book, and one thing out of the many, is you give tips to women, and we're not going to have time to get into them all today, of course, and I want people to go and see them for themselves. But there are many that you gave that I really, really appreciate. But there's one where you say, please read this carefully. You can never, ever, ever, never, never, ever, never, 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 ever change your man. Ever. Did I say ever? Ever?
I think you put a few extra in there, but I love it. I would have liked to have done that in the book. I'm not sure my publisher would have let me.
I know. But that is so true. So many women think that they can change men.
Absolutely. And I am one of them. I did it. I tried. Trust me, I tried. And it was hopeless. And it's a good thing I didn't because, who would have knows what would have happened down the road. But at any rate, that's really the message of that chapter on Don't Rely on Love. Yeah.
Kelly and I my producer was discussing the book yesterday while preparing for the show, and she admitted that at one point she felt that way too. She really, even though her parents tried to, taught her that's not the way to do it. Mm-hmm. She went off to college and, Princeton and all that. And at some point she felt that she believed that she could change a man. Mm-hmm. And she was just influenced, she said, to believe that. But now she realizes that that's not true. So I guess this idea of women changing men, is that coming from the educational system as well?
I can't speak to where the idea comes from, except my only conclusion is that it's this focus on romance, that if you love him, you can then you can force it and make it happen. That's my point. Whereas in the past, people knew, and I compare my first marriage to this as well, you get movies back in the 40s sent the message that when two people were terribly, passionately in love, but they knew that it wasn't going to work for ABC practical reason, they said goodbye to each other. And it was heart-wrenching, even today watching it. And I said in my book, we didn't have the courage to do that. That was our problem, because we could have and should have walked away when we knew it wasn't going to work before, but we didn't, because I was so romanticized and that I'm going to make it happen because, damn it, I want it to happen kind of thing. Yeah. And in the past, they walked away and they said, as much as I love you, there's that message was in the Gone with the Wind. I mentioned that in the book, where one character does love the other, but he's going to marry someone else because she's like him, and he knows that the passion will wear off, and they'll be left with nothing. Uh-huh. So that's like a huge portion of why I think women especially, are forcing this love issue, and it just doesn't work.
Amazing insight. I do remember Kelly telling me that she believed that she was influenced or brainwashed by the pop culture, magazines, movies, and TV shows, that she was influenced by those things as well.
And that's why I opened the book with that chapter, Live an Examined Life. And that whole first chapter is exactly what you just said, that the culture is working against you every step of the way. And the only way to get this right is to ignore it. And that's an extremely difficult thing to do. Well, either that or try to get the media and the culture to change its ways in its messages, which, is another option, I guess. But for now, I'm encouraging people to just ignore it, and not tune into it.
Well, I have to say, you are something else in a good way.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate your courage to go out there and say it, because I know people don't liberal people don't like it.
Right.
Tell the people again, real fast, your website and look at stuff.
It's just the title of the book, HowToChooseAHusband.com.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, and God bless you.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Have a good day now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. 888-775-3773. Back in a moment.